are back. Welcome back. I don't know which I should say. I've rehearsed this in my brain at least 2 million times, and I've actually recorded this about a million because it's been so long. I know that it's been so long since there has been a podcast episode. I know that many of you have been in touch with me, obviously, in other ways. It's not as though I fell off the planet completely, but obviously, I know that there has been a huge hiatus when it comes to podcasting altogether. And so much, as I'm about to share with you, has changed. So, again, I don't know if I should say welcome back, but either way, I'm super, super, super excited to jump back into podcasting, number one. But number two, do it in a way that feels so exciting and so purposeful and so fulfilling to me. And I hope, therefore, for you as well. I don't even know exactly where to begin, especially because I'm going to be sharing so many things with you. But over the past year, I mean, did anything happen last year? Did I miss anything? Like, the world obviously is in a totally different place than it was since the last time I recorded an episode. And, when I did that, I think it was like December of 2020 was the last time we actually published an episode. I definitely never intended to take as much of a break as I did. Like, that was never a goal. It was never a decision. It was just kind of like, I needed a break and, just things like going home for Christmas and then traveling. And it was like, all right, I'm going to, we'll put out an episode next week. And he even recorded a couple. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't jump back into it. I was struggling to feel excited about it. I was struggling to not feel like I don't want to say a hamster wheel because that's a little bit more extreme than it actually was. But it just felt like something extra that I was doing without a whole lot of purpose. And this podcast, having a podcast, like, this has been something that has been a really big deal to me for a really long time. Like, I think out of everything that I've done in my business, like, this feels like the big vision piece of it. This feels like the pinnacle of what I want to do. And the fact that I was just going through the motions at one point, it just, again, it didn't feel good to me, and it's not what I'm here to do, quite frankly. And so again, I was just kind of struggling, like, with what foot to put in front of the other and how I was going to kind of, again, regroup in a way that felt really aligned for me. And then again, of course, therefore for you as well. And so, we go into March, and I actually many of you know this, but I got a breast reduction back in March of 2020. And it was kind of like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take off for a couple of weeks and, recover. And then as soon as, I'm feeling better, like, we're going to, get right back into it. And I literally got my boobs done on March 11th. And like the next day, my sister's here taking care of me. And all of a sudden, like, we're seeing on Facebook, like, nobody can find toilet paper. And, it felt like the world literally fell apart that very next day. It became very real the next day. And over the course of COVID playing out, I've felt weird saying this every single time I've said it, but it's true. And I'll always say what is true. And that's that last year, 2020, was the best year of my life in a lot of weird ways. And it's especially weird to say because I barely left my apartment after March, right? Like, I was very much in my home, like, again, not living a whole lot of life, but more than ever, more than the entire 35 years that came before it, I got to know myself really, really, really fucking well last year. And I'm sure many of you feel this way. My friend Stefan, I think, said it really well. We were talking one day. He was like, I think the beauty of this year is that so many of us have had no choice but to deal with ourselves emotionally, like to take care of ourselves emotionally, to care more about our own inner well-being than how we might look at a dinner party or how we might look to other people. Like, we've had no choice but to confront what was going on, right, with ourselves, because again, most of us were in, isolation in many ways, right? And, I think that is a little bit extreme, especially I know a lot of you in other countries, my clients, especially in Canada right now, are really, really, really secluded. And I know we haven't had it in many ways as bad here, in the sense that, like, again, we weren't, locked in our homes for a year exactly. But my point is that we did a whole lot fewer things, right, last year than we would have normally. And I hired a life coach in May of 2020. And it's so funny for me to say that because it feels so obvious now. But all this time I've had a business, all this time I've been, an entrepreneur. I've had mindset coaches, I've had, business coaches, of course, but it was always business centered. It was always business centered. And then, like, a life coach, what a concept to actually work on my life instead of my business. I mean, my life is my business and my business is my life. But for so long, something that still plays a role is that what I see very clearly now is that I ignored a lot of pieces of my life. It has felt over the past couple of years, especially, to devote more of my time and energy to my business instead of maybe facing some of the things that needed to be faced, right? And so last year, I really had no choice, it felt like, to face a lot of it. And there were a lot of really difficult moments in the sense of like really like recognizing the ways in which there were a lot of things like emotionally that I had never allowed myself to feel before. And that's like it's a really weird moment when you are realizing all these things that you actually had to be upset about, but you never allowed yourself to be because you numbed it in certain ways. And so I'm sharing all of that and I'm going to share a lot more about it because I think it's really important. But the bottom line is, I really last year, like, I spent a lot of time scraping away a lot of layers of pain and ways in which I was not aware of who I was or what was going on or the ways in which I was protecting myself and all of these kind of things. And so, again, to come back to this, it's this bizarre thing to say because in 2020, I spent more time on myself than I ever have, right? And I got to know myself on a deep level. And I feel as though I don't want to say I became, because I didn't become somebody else. I think I just kind of like allowed myself to be who I always was in the first place, right? Like I feel like, again, like I scraped away a lot of layers so that that authentic version of myself could come out. And I feel more myself and more comfortable in my skin and more comfortable with what I have to say and the way in which I want to do things like than ever, ever, ever in my entire life. And so I'm sharing all of that because every month that went by, right? I was like, I'm going to start the podcast again. I'm going to do the podcast again. And literally a week would go by, a month would go by, and I'm like, this sounds obnoxious, but like I felt like I was growing and I was shifting and I was evolving at such a rapid rate that like I couldn't catch up with myself. It was like I would do an episode and then like a week later I'd be like, oh my God, like I see that like not differently now, but I feel like I figured things out and like I would have said it a different way. And so it was just this thing where I was trying to, again, put one foot in front of the other and try to get this done, or I kept telling myself that I wanted to get it done, and then it just kept not feeling right for whatever reason. And I always have the tendency to believe that things happen right on time. And so I feel like right now I'm relaunching this at exactly the right moment. Again, not just for myself, but also for you, because I really think that I am a different human being than I was a year ago. Like, that is it. Like, I am a different human being than I was a year ago. I don't even know another way to say that. And with that comes so much more that I want to share with you and that what I want to talk to you about. The thought of, talking to you about how to run a webinar, right, makes me want to stab myself in the eyeball. Like, I can't talk about those things anymore, not because I don't believe in the webinar, whatever, but like it's so much of this goes so much deeper. There are so many more layers. There are so many more important pieces to the puzzle. And I want to go so much deeper as it pertains to the human side of entrepreneurship, right? Because the fact that I thought, not that, again, my business coaches didn't help me, I don't mean to make it sound that way, but the idea that I didn't understand how much a life coach would help me get to know myself, and then therefore, of course, that would explode my business. Of course, that would change me in so many beautiful important ways that would, of course, reflect in my business, right? Last year was our first $1 million cash year. It was also really the simplest year, and I'll talk more about that with you in the next couple episodes. But it was a really simple year. We really committed to simplicity so that really I could spend the time, again, kind of focusing on myself versus just my business the way I had done so many times previously. But I can't have the surface conversations. I can't not acknowledge how much deeper, like, again, the money, the marketing, all of that kind of stuff, it's so much bigger than most people realize, most people talk about. Not to act like nobody talks about it, I don't mean it that way, but again, it's just my desire to go deeper and bring you along on that journey. Really, there's nothing that like excites me and lights me up more than giving you the light bulb moments that like I struggle to have, right? The things that I have tried to overcome for days, weeks, months, years. If I can help you get there a little bit faster, like nothing lights me up more than that. Nothing makes me happier or feel more fulfilled than that. And like that's what I want such a big part of this podcast to be. So if we go back to last year, You're Fucking Welcome was kind of born accidentally because, and again, this is something that I want to talk to you about too. I think that selling in my business has never felt like a thing. You know, I'll hear a lot of women say things to me like selling feels scary or it feels icky or I'm worried that I'm just wanting to take their money, blah, blah, blah. I understand all of those things. It's not that I don't understand them. Like I have compassion for it. But I am somebody who, having started my business dead broke, I just didn't have time to be afraid of that. Like the rent had to get paid, right? Like I didn't have time to be in fear or like nervous about asking for the sale. I really didn't have any other choice. And so in talking to clients, in working on things in, my programs, having these conversations about women fearing being salesy or being in fear around, oh, but if I send a second email, that day, am I going to annoy people? And again, it was like kind of born accidentally. I wish I could tell you like the first time that I said it, but it was like the attitude needs to be like, you're fucking welcome for letting you pay me. You're fucking welcome for sending you this email. You're fucking welcome for marketing this program, because I really deeply believe that and this applies to all things, but when you are rooted in authenticity, right? And your intentions are good, and you're doing things for the right reasons, right? If we're just talking about selling here specifically, if I believe in the thing that I'm selling, if I believe in the way that I'm showing up for the people who buy from me, if I believe in the possibilities and the potential that the thing that I'm selling offers, why the fuck would I ever hesitate to share it with the world? Like, it does, like that to me doesn't even make sense. What I mean by it doesn't make sense is like, again, it has just come naturally to me that like, okay, I've got to sell. Whereas there are things that come naturally to you that I struggle with. This in particular, selling, it's like it feeling hard or it feeling difficult or confusing or there being emotions about it. It's something that has never occurred to me because it's felt like there's just no other choice. If we want to be entrepreneurs, we have to sell, right? And so in saying you're fucking welcome, it was something that just kind of caught on. Like my clients would repeat to me, like, that was the biggest takeaway from this. And it just kind of started being this thing where like I was saying it to my clients and, they were saying it back to me. And then I launched a program called You're Fucking Welcome, a sales program. And I was working with an agency for a short period, and as we were ramping up to kind of like relaunch this entire different side of my business, right, the podcast and other things, and it was funny because I had said to my sister, I was like, do you think I should change things to You're Fucking Welcome? And she said no. And she was right to say no, because I think it was just like, especially with it just being the two of us, I think it was just kind of like, oh God, that sounds like a lot of work to rebrand everything. And so we just kind of like skipped it, right? And then this agency, so they're like, we really think, you should run with this and stick with this. And it was so funny because when they said that to me, it was just like this moment of like coming home. Like, when something feels exactly right, that's how it felt to me. And I'm so grateful for them reflecting that back to me and giving me permission, if you will, to step into it, to run with it. But from a business perspective, to take it and run with it and use it and make it be this thing in my business and in my brand and, the name of the podcast, so on and so forth. But even more than that, the permission to step into it in terms of who I'm being. Because now it's like this thing where I'm mindful on an almost everyday basis to make sure that I'm embodying what your fucking welcome means, because I always want to walk my walk, right? And so what's been interesting, and I think this is an interesting thing in general, but selling has always come easily to me, right? So again, I can see that very clearly when I'm talking to somebody, when I'm guiding somebody through that. Like, it feels very obvious to me how you shift into a confident sense of ownership when it comes to what you're selling and how to do it, blah, blah, blah. But then realizing that, like, oh, I should apply it to dating. I should apply it to this thing I'm struggling with, meaning like it's the same shit everywhere. It's the same shit in all areas of your life, in the sense that, like, it starts with you being authentically anchored in who you are, what you know, what your truth is, right? And then being able to articulate it honestly, authentically, clearly, and being unshakable about what is true to you, and understanding that some people will like it, some people won't, and neither one of those things are your problems, because you're you, right? It goes so deep. And what I meant by it's funny is that it's always important to me, for me to remember myself, but also for me to remind clients that, so often, like, maybe I have a client who is I don't know, like a holistic health coach. Certain things will come very easily to them as it pertains to, like, eating, let's just say. And then when it comes to selling or money or business, the same principles could apply, but they're not seeing it because they're emotional about the business side, right? Just like me with, like, weight stuff. It was funny. I was having a conversation with my coach, and we were talking about, I don't even remember what it was. It was like literally like I gained like 2 pounds, and like I didn't understand why. And I was like not freaking out about it, but I felt like a little bit like frustrated about it. This was months and months ago. And I think I said something like moronic, and I say moronic meaning like I was like picking up on some like emotional thing where I was like, oh, I must have done this and that's why, or something like that. And like her being like, well, there's a million different variables, obviously, like maybe you ate too much salt, like whatever, the hormonal balances. It was this light bulb moment for me, because I'm like, like if somebody came to me about their launch not working, I know how layered it is. I know how many different variables there are. I know there's no way to just pinpoint one specific thing. A lot of things go into it. You've got to look at all these different things, and it's not about what you do on one day or one post. It's about the collective, energy and effort that you're putting into things. The same thing with like weight loss, all of that. And it's always funny for me to like put something that I'm struggling with into the context of like business or marketing or money, whatever it is, where like it's something where I get really clearly, and I just have to be able to give myself permission to see that thing that I'm struggling with clearly, if that makes sense. And so I know that I personally find that really helpful to remember. And so I want you to, of course, remember that as well. But so all of that to say, I think that I wanted to rebrand this You're Fucking Welcome for a couple core reasons. And I started writing like this like manifesto, like the You're Fucking Welcome manifesto. And it's not quite complete, and I'm not sure I'm going to share it with you here. I'm in the process of writing a book with the same name, and maybe it'll go there instead. But in this episode in particular, I just wanted to break down for you the most important things that I believe You're Fucking Welcome stands for, and why it feels so important to me. The first piece of it, and again, where it was kind of born, is that I want to give you permission. I want to give the world permission to not only, make money doing what you love. It sounds so cliche and corny at this point, but I believe and I experience over and over and over again that nothing but good shit happens when passionate, kind, intentional, authentic women take what they love, right? What they're passionate about, what fulfills them. And when they take that and when they turn that into a business that, yes, sells, a business that makes money, and a business that is not sorry for making money, a business that genuinely helps other people in the way in which they need help, nothing bad happens. When it is rooted in, again, that authenticity and that passion, nothing bad happens. And I believe that so deeply. And again, I want to give like you, everyone, the permission to recognize that and to stop with the feelings of, I'm going to worry what this person thinks if I make more money, or I'm worried about, this person being pissed off if I'm selling. If you are rooted again in authenticity, if you are anchored in your truth in terms of you believing in what you're selling and the way that you're selling it and the way that you're delivering and the way that you're showing up in this world, and turning around, of course, and like not only, living your life the way that you want to because of the money that you're making, but doing good with that money. I talk about this all the time, but like I promise you, like this sounds a little obnoxious, but like I promise you, I'm a far better, kinder person making money in my business versus the days when we weren't. And nobody knows that more clearly than my sister Gretchen, who works for me, right? The moments where I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent, I sure as hell wasn't donating. I wasn't tipping extra. I wasn't, caring as much. And not that I didn't care before, but it was like when I'm sitting there stressed out and like nauseous about how I'm going to pay the bills, I couldn't really see anything outside of myself those days, right? Being able to be more calm, right? Making money, doing things that I really care about and helping people in a way that I believe in. Everyone benefits from that. Not to mention the fact that, I've had so many conversations with women who have, maybe children or like spouses. And I promise you that woman who is miserable in her cubicle, right? Doing a job that she hates, doing a job for a boss that she doesn't respect, doing a job where she's not respected. The person who's turning around and actually doing work that fulfills them and that brings them joy and feels purposeful, that person is going to be a much better wife, partner, mother, sister, daughter, everything, right? Than the person who is deeply unhappy with how they're spending 40 plus hours a week. And so again, it feels so incredibly important to me to like give you and anyone else that comes into my space in any which way the permission to say like, yes, like you're fucking welcome for being paid. You're fucking welcome for doing what I love and making money and changing the world and fulfilling myself and fulfilling others. And just because there's a price tag attached to it doesn't make it wrong. And again, I know that there are shitty people, right? I know that there are people who charge for services and, whatever, don't back it up. And like, that sucks. And don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like act like that doesn't happen, or I'm not trying to act like it's not a big deal, but it's also, I was going to say not my problem. And I don't mean not my problem in like a cold way, but I mean not my problem in the sense that if I know that I'm doing right by my people, that's all that matters, because there are going to be 100 coaches in the room. And if 99% of them do business in a really shitty, icky way, fine. But I get to be the person who's doing it the right way. I get to be the one who honors my word and all of those kind of things. And so I get to set a tone not only for like the people in my world, but then also I get to give them permission to do business the right way. And God knows I'm not a perfect human being, but I do try to do things the right way. And I believe a lot of people do. And so again, if you are that person, which I'm assuming you are, if you're the person doing things the right way and doing them from this place of truly caring and again, delivering what you said you were going to deliver, nothing bad happens then when you get paid. Right? Like I believe that deeply, and I want, again, you to believe that deeply. The second part of it is, you're fucking welcome for being me, right? And when I said that I'm applying it to areas in which I might not struggle, but also maybe I don't get as clearly, it's like if somebody reaches out to me and is like thinking about working with me, I almost find it a tiny bit laughable at this point when I get like the email that's like asking me a million questions or whatever it is. And not that anyone's wrong for that, but I really just don't entertain it in the sense that I'm not going to try to convince you to work with me. I'm not going to beg you. I'm not going to, try to prove my worth to you. It's, I've been showing up in my business for a long time. You can see who I am. You can look at my work. You can look at my testimonials. You want to work with me, great. But if not, that's okay too. Right. And then when it comes to, let's say, dating, or let's say, maybe certain social situations, I was not applying that same mindset at all. It was like, oh God, oh my God, if this person, God forbid, doesn't, message me back on Bumble, it means all these things about me. And let me make sure that I say, hey, the right way with an exclamation point, or, I'm being a little bit dramatic, but like I can overthink things like that. Whereas like I've like really pushed myself to remember that same attitude again when it comes to everything else. I'm not going to live my life kind of like outside of my body. I keep comparing it visually to like Hocus Pocus when she's like sucking the souls out of the little children. It's like I can like be very rooted in who I am, and then I have moments where I feel like the soul's getting sucked out of me, and it's like I'm living my life from like I'm saying things and I'm like not even in my body at that moment. And it's like when I remember to get rerouted, right? Just like with selling, rooted authentically in who I am and what I know is true. It's not that I'm like, oh, fuck you if you don't like me. It's because it's not that aggressive. The old Sarah would have been more aggressive. The old Sarah would have been like, fuck you. Like, if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. Like, I would have like kind of made it mean something as this means of protecting myself. And now it kind of just feels like very just neutral vibes. Like, if you don't like me, okay, cool. Like, I like me. And at 36 years old, I'm way more concerned with me liking me. I know we've all been in that situation where we're more worried about if people like us than like if we actually like them. And I found myself in a few situations, in being in LA, especially in the early phases where, I moved to this fresh city and I didn't really know anybody. And I had these moments of wanting to fit in here or kind of like do this there, and this feeling of wanting to be liked. And it took me a while to be like, oh, but like, do I actually like them? I'm not sure I even want to fit into this in the first place, right? And I think a lot of us, especially as women, have done that. And so as I've done the work that I've done over the past year in being, again, truly, really anchored in who I am in a lot of ways, way more ways than there were, again, a year ago, I feel really good about who I am. And, in business, this comes up a lot of times. Again, like the old Sarah would have been like, this is like old Sarah years ago. Like I would have been freaking out if somebody saw that I made a typo on my sales page and, oh my God, like I don't look professional and they're going to think this and they're going to think I don't care about my work and blah, blah, blah. And now I'd be like, oh, yep, sorry. I'm probably going to make more of them, just FYI, right? Like I'm okay owning imperfections, and I'm really uninterested in trying to pretend that I'm perfect or trying to strive for perfection. That's a whole other episode in and of itself, but I'm really uninterested in it. And I really deeply believe that like if you own it within yourself, if you're cool with it, you find that other people are cool with it or they fall away. And so again, like I want to, during our time together, right, do what I can to help you and guide you and support you in really just feeling confident and feeling okay with, again, being who you are and being okay with anybody who doesn't approve, doesn't like it. And again, not from a dismissive, protective energy, simply from this neutral place, right? This totally neutral, untriggered, unfazed place, because trying to convince somebody of anything, right? Especially to, like when it comes to liking you, whether it's as a client or as a romantic partner, it's pretty much a waste of time. And if there's any time that I can help you not waste, that feels like a really important thing to me, And so the third thing that I want to say, and what this podcast stands for as we move forward, is, you're fucking welcome for talking about this. I hate small talk. I can sit there and I can get on a coaching call with somebody I've never talked to before in my life, and I can ask you, when's the last time you had sex, and how'd your parents fuck you up? And we can have like the deepest conversations, and that lights me up so much. Not that I would really ask people that for a second, of course, but like I can go deep with it. Like I love going deep with people. Whereas like when I'm walking my dog and like I have to stop and like talk about the weather, like it makes me want to cry. Like it's not a fun thing for me at all. And so, especially like for me, again, enjoying those deeper conversations, and more than that, seeing and knowing how important these deeper conversations are, I want to make sure that I'm doing that for you. I want to make sure that I'm providing that kind of thing. And so, whether it's having somebody on to talk about, how your cycle affects, your emotions and all of that when it comes to your business. Because I know that's a very real thing that I think a lot of us don't give ourselves enough acknowledgement around, right? When we're tired or we're cranky and we're not even realizing that, oh, this isn't actually me. We're used to beating ourselves up for not feeling, in tip top shape. And actually, it's beyond our control in some situations. And so things like that. I want to talk about sex. I want to talk about, I feel like I hear so many women talk about things like the fact that like their husband is unsupportive. I say a husband because I feel like that's where I typically hear it. But these conversations that, I say in the trailer, like that normal people don't have. Like, I really deeply believe that like us as entrepreneurs, especially in this day and age, like the way that so many of us are making money, it's not, I didn't open up a pizza shop like that. That's easy to explain to mom and dad. Whereas like, sales funnel, like nobody knows what the hell you're talking about and everybody looks at you like you're crazy. A lot of people don't get what we do, and therefore a lot of people judge, right, what we do. And a lot of times it's, coming from this place of with an intent to protect us, right, when it's coming from close family members, friends, whatever it is. But like, I feel as though us as entrepreneurs, right, we are, out of all people, it feels as though we are some of the people that are the most invested in our own personal growth. We're the ones who are most invested in not staying the same, not being okay with being completely blind to our triggers or, unaware of what's going on with us emotionally or any of those kind of things. And so when you hear somebody talking about something and you're like, oh my God, yes, I thought I was the only person in the world that felt this way. Like, I want this to be a show that hopefully brings you some comfort in that way, that hopefully supports you and helps you feel supported in the sense that like this journey can be a very lonely one. And there's not a single entrepreneur that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to many, there's not a single entrepreneur that I've spoken to who hasn't said that to me. If I talk to 10 women entrepreneurs, 9 of them have said to me, it's lonely at the top. It's a hard thing to feel as though like the people around you don't necessarily get you, or you've outgrown the people who you were once close to. That's not an easy thing. And it's a beautiful thing in many ways to grow. And, maybe sometimes we're kind of evolving past certain people or relationships. It's ultimately a beautiful thing, but it's not always easy. And so if we can have better conversations that allow you to feel again supported and heard and understood in a way that you're not used to, like that really feels like what I'm here to do. And I don't want to promise that we're not going to do ads because, years down the road, who the heck knows, or months down the road, I don't know. Things could always change, of course. But like, to me, I just say this because the way that I'm approaching this podcast and a lot of the things in this chapter of my business, they're not for the purpose of making money. They'll make me money. I know they'll make me money. I think that this is going to do a lot of beautiful, wonderful things for me, but I'm not doing it because of a launch or because I want to get the paycheck from this, advertiser. I'm doing this because it fulfills the hell out of me. I was going to say this. I'm literally, by the way, just side note, I am in my living room because I wanted to feel like really comfy and like cozy and like I was chit-chatting with you, like instead of like, I don't know, at my desk, like it feels a little bit different. Whereas like I'm literally in my pajamas right now and I'm sitting on my couch cross-legged and like super comfortable. My dog is sleeping next to me. I was hoping she wasn't going to snore. She has not. The lights are off because I was trying to get her to go to sleep. But that's how I want it to feel. Like I want to figure out a way in which to like, cause we're going to do a YouTube element to this at some point, but especially when we do interviews, I'm like, nothing makes me happier in the world than like sitting by a fire at night, having a couple drinks. Like that is like the happiest experience for me. And I'm like, I have to figure out a way to do that with like the show. And obviously I think the fire would make a lot of noise and we'd have to figure that out logistically. But that's literally like what I live for. Like us being able to sit around and it be this conversation, this deep conversation, this impactful, this purposeful conversation that changes your life a little bit at a time. Those kind of nights, those kind of conversations are the things that I live for. And so again, I'm doing this in my business, quote unquote, to, yes, it's an element of my business, and business is such a big part of what we're going to talk about here, but it truly is important to me and it's fulfilling to me, and I hope it's important and fulfilling to you, because truly it's what I want. It's what I'm here to do. I promise you it's so incredibly important to me, and that is my intention as we kick this off. And so I have so much more coming up for you. As we dive back into this, I mean, who knows, you might be listening to this years from now, but as we dive back into the podcast, we're going to have episodes every Tuesday and Thursday morning. We might do more, we might not. I'm trying to ease back into Tuesday and Thursday consistently before I overpromise. But I've got a lot to say. I've got a lot of cool episodes, either recorded or soon to be recorded for you. And so I'm super excited to share that with you. One of the things, and this actually, I just did this today and I'm really freaking excited about it, but I joined Community, and I don't know if you are familiar with it quite yet, but you see a lot of people like Gary Vee, like I saw like Brad Paisley on like the ads for it, but essentially it's a text marketing type of app, but it's less like a text blast, right, where you just text something and they give you an automated reply. This is actually me texting. Like, this is actually us having a conversation. I'm not promising that, I'm going to answer every text for till the end of time. I'm sure it'll be a lot at some point. But for now, I'm really enjoying just being in there and having you guys text me and say hi. And I think I'm going to start sending maybe like morning texts or voice texts, just like kind of things that pop into my head, and I want to share them with you exclusively. And so the number for that is 848-257-5301. Text me, just say hi, let me know what you'd love to hear on the podcast as we move forward. But more than that, I want to get a fuck small talk conversation going, where we're engaged in more conversation. So especially now with the texting and the community thing, I feel like that might be the way that I want to go. But again, maybe I'll introduce Clubhouse. I'm not really sure yet. But for now, I would love for you to either text me or tag me on Instagram, SarahDan_, and just something about, share with me what your fucking welcome means to you and how you want to step into that, or maybe how you need to step into that type of attitude in an area in your life or an area of your business. And it can be one of the things I shared with you today, maybe something about dating or, selling, or maybe it's something completely different. But again, when I think you're fucking welcome, it's an automatic attitude shift, and it allows me to be so much more anchored and so much more grounded in who I want to be. And I want that to be something that you're able to adopt as well. And so again, text me, share it with me on Instagram. You can tag me in your story or in a post. Either way, I want to be in it. I want to be checking them, and just share a little bit with me again about what the attitude either means to you or what you want it to mean to you, how you want to step into it a little bit more. I would love to hear that. I would love to read that. Definitely do that for me. And then if you could, I would be so grateful and so appreciative to leave us a 5-star rating and review. As we ramp back up, especially, it's really helpful and really important, and more than anything, in the sense that that's how we get more ears onto the show. And that's ultimately what I want, because I believe it's going to be massively important for all the ears to hear. And so thank you for being here. I'm excited for the next episode. I'm excited for all the things that I have planned for you, and I'm grateful for you. I'm thankful that you're here, and I'm super excited to chat with you next time. So until next time, you're fucking welcome.